Being in Sync 366 video series. This is video 250. Never in my life did I think I'd do this many videos on live YouTube, but here I am bringing to you the energetic perspective of what is going on for people and how that they can align within. I am Kiannaa Sadge, and I do energy psychology. This is a process in which we align physical, mental, emotional, spiritual aspects of our body so we can be congruent within. If we are out of alignment in any one of those aspects, everything can go crazy. So every video I am doing in this series is to help you just really have some basic understanding that if you do things every single day, you can become aligned. It doesn't have to cost you a lot of money, although I have learned that money is an excuse that people use to keep themselves misaligned and incongruent on a regular basis. So don't let that be you. So today we are talking about cognitive distortion. Not to be confused with cognitive dissonance, which is what therapists often use to describe the mind and the heart disassociations. What I will say is that there is an aspect in which I believe most psychologists miss because they're not trained in it in any way, shape, or form. It's the spiritual aspect. They're not trained in it for, I think, nefarious reasons. However, they are trained to prescribe and to keep people hooked into a system. Energy psychology is not about being hooked into a system. It's about being hooked into yourself. Hey, Eric, good to see you here. I feel like my lighting is weird today. Hopefully everything's okay on that end. Thanks for being here, Eric. So cognitive distortion. So first of all, let me talk about cognitive distortion and hey, Oliver, and cognitive dissonance. They both stem from the exact same aspect. Can you guess which aspect it is? Is it physical? Is it mental? Is it emotional? Is it spiritual? Which one would you guess that causes cognitive dissonance and distortion? Which one? Do you have a guess? Let's hear. What do you think? I think there's 7 of you here. 7 of you. Any of you have a guess of where the distortion or dissonance occurs from? Is it physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, or the spiritual body? Because everything that's distorted has to originate in one aspect. Which aspect would you say? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Eric. Okay. Cognitive distortion and cognitive dissonance originate with a fracture in the spiritual body. Doesn't happen in your mental body first, or your physical body, or your brain, or with a physical injury. It's always going to start in the spiritual body. It's going to start with a spiritual body trauma, and it's going to exaggerate. So what is the distortion, and what is that happens when we have a cognitive distortion? It's going to begin with exaggerated, irrational thoughts. So people would automatically think it's mental, but it's happening in the spiritual first. So remember, everything in the physical occurs in the non-physical first. So you have to start to understand the spiritual aspects and what's happening in our spiritual body. A lot of people that have cognitive distortion will mislabel their perception. So what they're actually perceiving, their reality of perception will be distorted, and it will be exasperated by how they're labeling it or potentially if there's somebody who catastrophizes situations, and then they will take things personally, right? And then this disconnects the heart, and more importantly, or just as important, I will say, it disconnects them from their soul. So when we have cognitive dissonance or cognitive distortion, what it's actually doing is disconnecting you from your heart and your soul. So you think it's happening in the mind, but it's actually a spiritual aspect of an attack that's occurring, that you're feeling in your physical heart, in your mental capacities, and it changes how you operate in your physical world. Now, do therapists talk about this? The spiritual aspect? No. Why don't they talk about it? Would be very interesting. I suspect it's because they might say it's a conflict of interest, and or there might be different religious practices, which there often is. However, your spirituality has nothing to do with religion, okay? It is not a religious belief. It's an expression of our physical body. So let's not get confused between our spiritual body, which also is part of our light bodies, and how that impacts us as physical. It's huge piece of it, but people often get confused with religion and spirituality. Well, why would that be? Well, that's because there is actually a war on consciousness, not on your spirituality, but on your consciousness, your ability to expand into a different way of being, to expand it to new potentials that are different than, let's just say, some controllers might want. So it's really important. A lot of people that are suffering mentally, emotionally, spiritually are doing so because they are being brought down into these lower realms of consciousness where it's miserable. It's a misery. And people suffer in that misery because they don't know how to get out of it. The reason why they're struggling to get out of it is because there's not a pill in the world that can get you out of it. You have to get out of it through your own internal connection and relationship with God and how you build your spiritual house. Completely counter intuitive of everything that we've ever been taught socially, economically, and in all of our education. Nothing teaches us how to build this inner congruence. Why is that? Because your consciousness is that important that you wouldn't be taught how to use it. Imagine that. Imagine if you actually understood how important your spiritual aspects were. Just curious. What do you think? So what do you think about disconnecting from your soul? Miriam, I'm not sure what your question is. I didn't see a question here. You have to pose a question for a question to be answered. And if it's about this topic, I will most likely answer it. Eric, you like my green shirt. Thank you. Sonar, you have no clue. I just gave you the answer. What do you think about that? What field do I work in? I work in a field called energy psychology. Energy, it's basically how to heal spiritually, physically, mentally. It's basically about, let's say, leveling up in your physical ways of being. The plug, I disagree with you. He's saying that smoking is beneficial for your health. I would disagree with you. It makes it very difficult to associate and breathe and have your cells breathing when you're smoking. But that's just my personal opinion. Lem is saying, What authority do you preach? I don't think I'm preaching, I'm teaching. And if you don't like what I'm saying, that's okay, you could keep moving. What authority? My experience, my over 25 years of experience, my experience as an intuitive, an empath, a telepath, a mystic. I'm also educated formally, in which all of my spiritual work has been to disentangle from all the lies that I have learned through the education. Silence, yay, good to see you. Vishal, oh, it's raining outside. No, it's hot outside here. So we're talking about cognitive distortion and how our disconnection from our heart will impact us in our minds, right? So that's what we're talking about today. How we can go into catastrophizing and distorting things even more when we're disconnected from our hearts. We'll take things personally. We'll have tissy fits. We'll get mad at people. We'll blame them. Say, you did this. And we go into these traps called victim, victimizer. And that's also a program. It's an archetype. You can look it up. First time here. Interesting. Awakened. Well, that's a long name. Awakened by the looking glass reflection. That's an interesting name. First timer here, interesting to consider. Yeah, very interesting. You know, what if your consciousness was solely yours and you didn't allow anybody to siphon your energy? Well, that would change how you perceive. When we are feeling drained, when we are feeling, I'll give you a real story that happened this last week. I had somebody message me saying they had these uncomfortable experiences with a witch and which they worked with. So this is somebody who is in a profession in which all of you would understand. It is a flight attendant, or I think that's the appropriate name. And there was another flight attendant that was a witch. And they were casting spells on people and siphoning their energy. And you think, oh, you know, how did you know they were a witch? I knew by how the client was describing what was happening. And I said, that's a witch. So you need to call back all your energy. And I got a message this week saying, I have so much more energy. They were feeling drained. And they weren't processing properly. They couldn't think properly. Because when your life force is siphoned from your consciousness, that comes from your energy field. And you can't see it. You can feel it. But because you don't know what it is, you don't know. And this is how we get siphoned. This is how the distortions get created, is that we get siphoned because our energy field is weak, because we believe that we are the only ones that control our energy. And that is a false belief, because most people don't understand their energy field. They don't have any comprehension that they have a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual body, and that it can be infiltrated. It happens all the time. But if you don't understand and call back your energy, if you don't understand that you have distortions, if you don't understand that how you are comprehending things is based on your a level of awareness, and your level of awareness determines the level of consciousness that you have. What are you going to do? If you don't know, you don't know, right? So you just keep operating on the same old beliefs, the same old ways of doing things, and that misleads you every time. So it's like the same thing. You keep going to the doctor because you know there's something wrong, but the doctor's telling you they don't know. And they just do one test after another test after another test. This is why they call it medical practice, because they're practicing on you. Don't give your authority away. You go to a doctor when you know you have a need, but you don't go to be experimented on, although I know that lots of people do. They give their authority away, and that's a dangerous thing. So you lose access to your consciousness, you lose access to your soul, and when you do not have full access to your soul, you will have disconnection in your heart and in your mind and in your body and in your emotions. That's why it's so important to have higher levels of awareness. You don't want to just be aware. You want to have heightened awareness. Okay, I'm going to see what you guys are saying. Oh, social media, I'm not selling anything. I'm here to just chat. Sim is asking, what would make you feel empty? There's lots of things that would make you feel empty. First of all, past lives can influence this life, but also a lack of connection within would make that deviation larger. So that is one thing. Connected to blackness would do that. So if you're around a lot of people or with black hearts, that would make you feel emptiness. Black hearts, black flowering hearts, that's, you can look it up. I don't want to go into too much of a detail, but true evil is really what, I was going to do a channel. I was going to do a video on this channel about evil, but that's really what would connect you to feeling empty is being around people who are evil. And sometimes those people who are evil is your mother or your father or somebody in your family. And because you don't want to see them how they truly are, they siphon the life out of you. And that will make you feel empty. Lem, I saw Jehovah and an Archangel Michael, and they told me I'm the next prophet. Well, there's a lot of false white lights. So beware. I have a friend going through something like that, and we discussed putting a bubble shield. Learning how to have a cylinder. I use a cylinder to see, sense, and feel what's happening in your field, but the bubble does not. So if you have a vulnerability, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, if you have vulnerabilities in your body, right, in your light body, the cylinder will not, or the cylinder or the shield that people use, that does not keep the vulnerabilities out. You must address the weakness and the vulnerability in order for your shield to really do what it's intended to do. And I don't know what your intention is to do with your shield, but that would be very important. What is your intention of the shield? If the intention is seeded from fear, which is to protect yourself, that is fear. That is, that's problematic, right? Because fear attracts fear. So you've got to really understand and be aware that you're, I tell my clients that use a space, a cylinder of light around their body to use it to see and sense when there's an infiltration. So they would have all of their weaknesses addressed, right? They are whole, so their weaknesses aren't going to allow things to seep in. So when something does get in, you would be able to address it and get rid of it. But if you don't have a bubble or a shield or anything and you're just walking around open, you're absolutely being infiltrated, siphoned. If you don't have a deep connection within your heart and connection to source or God or creator energy, your energies and your consciousness are vulnerable to nefarious technologies, I'll say. But awakened by the looking glass reflection, I teach my clients in the first session about how to see in their field and sense it. Oh, Cass, I'm already married. Thank you. This is the first proposal I've had, though, on this YouTube live. Oh, Eric, I'm here. Mohammed, you're not very nice. You can keep moving. This was not, it was another flight attendant who was doing witchcraft. Mahesh, absolutely not. I am not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I do what's called energy psychology. Lem, you don't have to send bad energy here. It's going to just bounce back right to you. Don't do that. Don't do that. You all have to really start to understand that when you send anything to people, it bounces back to you. Everybody is just a reflection of you. This is why they call it a holographic universe. That's how people see multidimensionally, because we're a holographic universe. Ned. Okay, Ned. Ned is changing his name. Why don't you change it on here? My name is Kiannaa. And why do you keep asking me over and over again my name? Oliver, you're in agreement. Okay. How can one be cool and calm in every situation? How to bypass stressless and mindful all the time. You must be in connection to the 0 point frequency, that state of neutrality. Everybody has that point within themselves. However, the more you connect to it, the more you can build strength and practice, and the neural pathways will align to it. What I will also say is that in order to be in a space of neutrality, you must do your ego work. You must be directing your mind. You must know when your mind is lying to you, when your thoughts are not yours. And you must be in tune with your heart and listening from your heart. When you listen and experience others and your life through the space of your heart, it will change how you perceive. So many people are in their minds, and their minds have been infiltrated, for lack of a better term, and their mind and their thoughts are not their own. So therefore, when you connect fully, totally, and completely to your heart, you can hold the space of neutrality easier. And then you can also just play with the states of neutrality that you go in. So when I am working with my clients, often their brain waves will go to a state of pure relaxation, and they're awake. They're not asleep, but their delta waves will be like they're asleep. That's how calm and cool they are. Now, they could do this on their own if they have trained and practiced. That means that they direct their thoughts. Okay. No goals on this chat, just discussions. How to keep the mind and body and soul in the same direction. Well, you must practice. So you could do that through number one, you got to address all your vulnerabilities and weaknesses in every single field. So physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. That's how I do. That's how I do it with my clients. I look to clear all the vulnerabilities and weaknesses that my clients have in those aspects, so they feel centered all the time, even when they're not with me. When you have vulnerabilities in your field, you can be easily distracted and redirected. So You got to really address vulnerabilities. And when you do address them, you will, oh, I get it now, awakened. I get it, Ned. That's cute. I like it. When you are in a full alignment, that means you have full connection to your heart, and your heart is open. You have lower and higher aspects of the heart. You want to have your heart fully opened and flowering, as they say, blooming. That means that all the potentials start to activate within your heart, because your heart is a portal. Your heart is a portal for higher dimensional consciousness. Doesn't come through your mind, comes through your heart. That's why there's so many people disconnected. Well, why are so many people disconnected? Because they've been misdirected. Why are they misdirected? Because they're not directing their mind. Their mind is directing them. You must direct your own mind. Oh, okay. Ned, awakened. Okay. Awakened. Jay, ego work. So we have an ego. When the ego is out of balance, Jay, it will cause distortions in how you're perceiving. If you don't do your work, meaning your ego is inflated, and or your lower ego, which is when you don't like yourself or when you talk negatively to yourself, and your ego becomes your identity. When you have used your ego to create your identity, those need to be disconnected and realigned. So you want to align to your heart, not your ego mind. The space of neutrality is within all of us. And I have done videos on that. So you have to go look on how to do that in another video. Muthaya is saying, how do you deal with toxic parents? Here we go with the parents. This is a very good question. I think it warrants its own video, but I will touch on it today. Oh, my dog needs to go to the bathroom. I will touch on it today. When you have toxic parents, the first thing that you need to do is have an awareness of what they are. So calling them toxic, labeling them, that might be good for a story, but it's not really healthy for you to call your parents toxic. Just like it's not healthy to call your parent a narcissist. You know, labeling them is helpful for us in how we, it's helpful for us in how we understand it intellectually, but it doesn't help us to heal. So let's just say your parents are toxic, and we'll use that and as an example. And, you know, fortunately, I didn't have that particular issue growing up, but I have a lot of clients and know people who have had this issue. And it is probably going to be your biggest life lesson and soul journey to address the wounds from your parenting, meaning how you were parented. Ultimately, the experience that you have from a toxic parent is up to you to decide what to do with them. Meaning you always have conscious choice in how you are approaching a situation. If I were engaged with a toxic person, they are somebody that I would choose not to spend time with. Why? Because I would really choose to look at people as not toxic, but are they safe or unsafe to be around? Okay? So when you discern what is safe to be around and what is unsafe to be around. So let's just say you have to prepare to be around your toxic parent. And let's just say you're around them and all of a sudden you go into cellular memory of traumas from your childhood. And you then are in fight or flight and reaction mode because your cellular memory is remembering the traumas that you have yet to address, because your parents cannot address your traumas, only you can. Your traumas are your responsibility. So when you understand that you are always in co-creation, and when you consciously choose what you're going to co-create, would you consciously choose to trigger yourself to go back to a cellular memory of trauma repeatedly? How easy is it to heal from traumas when you're being re-traumatized? Very challenging, nearly impossible. So that's one thing. But here's the second thing, is when you have a parent that is toxic, or let's just say emotionally imbalanced, and they're not mature, and they have behaviors that you don't prefer, and those preferences really bother you, and you might try to set up healthy boundaries, but you know, they're parents, they're gonna do what they're gonna do, right? All the time. Until you consciously choose to get out of that entanglement. Look at it like a web, and they spin like a spider web, and they spin these webs, and they're webs of lies, webs of manipulation, and they entangle you. Only you can disconnect from that entanglement, and it has to be you, and it can only be done by conscious choice. But let's just say you think you're choosing because you're trying to set up healthy boundaries. But you can't be in the presence of toxic people and not get poisoned. So you're in the web of the poisoning. So you choose to be around people who are toxic, you're going to get poisoned. You must choose otherwise. And that means going out of agreement to be in the web. How do you do that? I think the only one way to do it is to decide that you're not in alignment with that, and then that behavior is not in alignment with you, and you choose in alignment with yourself, your healing, your alignment to your heart. And if that means that you don't see your parent, that means you don't see your parent. If your parent can't honor your boundaries around healthy discussions or whatever, which they won't be able to because they're not capable of it. So you have to understand that you're not going to be having a conversation with your parent about their toxic behaviors. They're not capable of it. It's you who's having the perception and awareness that who they are is not beneficial for you. It's you that needs to make that decision. You know, I was 17 years old when my father called me one name. He only got one time to call me one name. One time. And he wasn't abusive until this one time. And he did apologize for calling me a name, but I was done. You do not behave inappropriately with other people. You don't call them names. You don't manipulate them. You don't lie to them. You don't leave carrots for people to try and follow you. No, you must have a value for yourself and what you're willing to do. That's why it's good to look at people not as a label, as a narcissist, as a toxic, but are they safe or unsafe? The one time my father said one word to me, that was it. I was done. And I was not mad at him. I was not angry at him. I just knew for me that behavior, unacceptable. From that day forward, ever. Now, did he try to communicate with me later? Yes. But I do not accept toxicity into my life. Now, I have made mistakes and I have been misled by other people, but it wasn't when they showed me who they were, I believed them. And when people show you who they are, you see them for who they are, not who you want them to be. It's a very difficult, challenging thing to do, especially when it's family members, because we want family to be loving. We've been conditioned that our family should be loving and supportive and encouraging. And a lot of times they're supportive as long as they're getting something back. That's the manipulation. Anyways, that was a long answer to your question, but hopefully that helped you. John. John, I wouldn't smoke any of those. V is asking, what is the best way to combat executive dysfunction? And what's, I am not sure I'm understanding this question, but when you say executive, you're not talking about dysfunction in corporate America or in corporations. So you don't combat anything. So first of all, V, if you are going to battle, that is an ego battle. You must understand, going into combat is a lose-lose. Nobody wins. So who loses the most is dependent on how invested you are in the war, in the battle. What's the cause of dysfunction? I think most causes of dysfunction are going to be coming from the spiritual body, in which most people do not tend to at all, unless they are doing their own work and really trying to understand how their energy works and how manifestation works and how co-creation works and what are the natural laws and how does quantum physics actually work, which is what we're operating off of, which is interesting to me that that's not taught in schools. I've always been interested in quantum mechanics and physics since I was a little girl. Did I study science? No. Was I interested in it? Yes. And so I did that that's what I do for fun. You know, I learn for fun. But why isn't that taught? Because if people actually understood the power of their spiritual connection, they would be more connected and then they would be less easily manipulated. John Paul, been listening. You are a pretty smart person. Well, thank you. I'm constantly learning. I love to learn. But I don't claim to know it all, that's for sure. Salvo, good to see you here again. How are you supposed to be happy when you're surrounded by so many dark and sinister ways of life that directly contradict your goal? Hey, that's a great question. And I think that depends on your perception. Because if you are in denial of the darkness, you can't bring light to it. So you have to understand your job is to be the light. It's to shine bright. It's to bring all of your heart, all of your expression fully to the surface so you can live life fully. You can love your life. And when you are that light, it shines on that darkness, and that darkness can no longer hold that dark when you're shining bright. So it's a metaphor, but the metaphor is in truth, meaning it's aligned to the natural laws. And so when you bring your light, your awareness, your consciousness to the darkness, it cannot rule you anymore. But so many people are so afraid to see what is really right in front of them. And that fear of seeing people as mean, as evil, as unkind, as unsafe is what keeps them being siphoned, and it keeps them in a detrimental and sometimes life and death situation where they get sacrificed, they get hurt, they get medical conditions which can't be explained, they get situations which they can't seem to get out of, and they go to doctors and the doctors say, oh, you're just stuck with it, because they haven't done their spiritual work. Try doing your spiritual work, and when you do your work and you address all your vulnerabilities, see if you still have the same issues. Probably not. I'm not saying you'll be safe from medical intervention by any means at all. I'm saying there are some good options when medical interventions are necessary. But many are not in alignment with understanding how the spiritual body works. They don't understand ascension. They don't understand ascension symptoms. And so things get misdiagnosed. And I am I'm a high proponent of multiple diagnoses. Like, go get many inputs for your situation. But I have talked to women that are afraid to go get second opinions or third opinions. They don't want to offend their doctor. That is somebody who is not in their power, and they will be manipulated, and they will get misdiagnosed, and they will regret it when they're on their path out. So anyways, I'm really talking very honestly today. I hope you don't mind. I really think it's unfortunate because a lot of people think that because I meditate and I'm doing my spiritual work, I won't have to contend with these things. But you have to contend with the darkness when you are continuously around darkness. There are some environments that are infested, literally infested with darkness. And there's supposed to be a place where people go to get healed. That's not happening. It is not happening. Anyway, I hope that helped you, Salvo. I just kind of went off on a tangent. Awakened and saying, this is why I send so many hugs and people feel them around the world. Intention is very powerful. Yes. Hey, Peter, good to see you here. I've been going off on some tangents, Peter, but you'll have to go back to the beginning to hear. John Paul, if my husband runs away with J-Lo, can I marry you? You are so sweet looking. He's not going with J-Lo. No. You think he would go from this to Jenny on the Block? Come on. No way. Jenny on the Block could not possibly stimulate him intellectually enough. You know, the physical gets boring very quickly. Okay. The only thing that needs to be realigned is your guts. Okay, Tired. I'm not sure this channel is for you, Tired. You've been here for a while. I'm not sure what you're saying here, but if you're talking about the microbiome, you're not incorrect. However, the microbiome is something that most people do not understand has a consciousness. Oh, thank you. Sam, how do you focus on yourself, love, yourself when your energy, everyone is judging you every time? I'm not sure. Let me rephrase this question. How to focus on your self-love, yourself where everyone else is judging you every time. Okay, Sam, let me just say this. I'm going to be really direct. Think about some of your thoughts. All of you in this chat right now, you're here. Take a moment and think about your thoughts. Think about how many thoughts you have every single day. Think about all the thoughts and the different things that are going through your mind, even while you're here on this video and you've got other things that you've got going on. Maybe you're multitasking. Think about all those thoughts. And then think about all those irrational thoughts, those thoughts that are like, oh, they're not really worth your time, but they're still going on. And then think about those times where people say things that they're thinking and they're like, why am I thinking that? And then, so why, Sam, why would you give any energy to what other people are thinking? Think about what you got going on and then think about what other people might have going on. It might be worse than yours and they might be judging you, but those judgments have nothing to do with you. So let them judge. You be the one that comes correct. You cannot change other people judging you. You cannot change people's perceptions of you. All you can do is show up consistently and stable and be your best self. And if they don't like that, let them go. Let them go. In my line of work, reputation is everything. But there are people in my work, and especially when I work in organizations, that would lie about me, that would make up things. They would say I was doing things that I wasn't doing. Lies, people lie all the time. You cannot allow yourself to be tethered to the business of what other people think or say. It will bring you down into the lower realms in which you will be siphoned for your loosh. L-O-O-S-H. Loosh. It's a miasma. It's an energy that comes from suffering. And when you go there and you feel bad about yourself, Sam, those energies, they like it. They like you feeling bad about yourself. They don't want you to love yourself. So how do you refocus on loving yourself? You have to learn. You have to teach yourself what radical self-love is. Spend the next 3 months on radical self-love, Sam. What is it to you? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does radical self-love act like? And then you start to change your behaviors. Radical self-love. Awaken to saying, tired of the labels. I have an alphabet soup following me. Yes. Well, let's look at why those labels like OCD, PTSD, DID, ADHD, all of those labels are given to people so they misidentify who they really are. So what system is doing that? Why would that system be doing that? What is the benefit for people to be misidentified? You have to start to question and use critical thinking as to why systems do that. Why would people identify with something other than creator energy? Why would anybody identify with a false identity? Why? Because we have been conditioned to believe things that are incorrect. And it's up to us to realign. 47 minutes now, Peter. Do dopamine chase make us see patterns? I'm not sure I understand your question here, print to leaf. As we think too much. Thinking too much is what disconnects people from their heart. When people are disconnected from their heart, they cannot connect to their soul. And now you see how your consciousness gets infiltrated and taken and stolen and siphoned away. And you must be completely connected to your heart so you can connect to your soul and be in alignment with your soul purpose. Awakened. I see patterns everywhere personally. Yes, I see patterns as well, but I don't hallucinate. I don't know what you're meaning. I don't know. Maybe I'm not looking at what you're talking about. Suri, are you a doctor? No, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I do what's called energy psychology. I repattern my clients' fields. I show people how to really hone their own energy and realign. Johnny, my name is Kiannaa. Chris Clark. People are people. Get over and make yourself valuable and live on. Chris, yeah, you got to know what your values are. I agree with you, Chris. And if people are not in alignment with your values, then it makes your critical thinking easy. You just don't have them as a part of your existence. Oh, Johnny, you're on the wrong channel. No twerking going on here. Andre saying Black Power. Alex is asking, are you Jewish? No, I am not. I look kind of Jewish. I don't even know what to say to you, Alex. Jewish to me, you're probably going to say it's an origin, a religion. It's got a lot of things associated with it. But no, I'm not Jewish. But I'm sure I have Jewish aspects for sure. What does that mean? Does that mean something? Does that mean something to you? Phil, don't buy into the hype. You're promoting transgenderism. That is an agenda. Don't buy into it. You're feeding into it right now, Phil. That means that you've been brainwashed. Go get yourself aligned. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I do energy psychology, which is different, which is just how we pattern energy. Because all patterns have a psychology associated with them. So that's why I call it energy psychology. Quantum therapy. Yeah, really, Alex. Except it's not therapy. Although people call it therapy. You could call it whatever you want, but it's not therapy. People have an idea about what therapists are. And to me, therapists are, they're certified by the government, and they have certain rules and regulations in which they must honor and be held to, which I don't. and everybody's got their path. I definitely have read psychology stuff. Okay, y'all. Manifestation is of the devil. Patrick, you couldn't be more off the mark. Don't you know that everything is connected to energy, and everything happens in the unmanifest and the pre-manifest and then goes into form? You're out of your mind, Patrick, for Christ. You're literally out of your mind. No, connect with your heart and soul, and then you will connect directly to the God within you, the God within each of you. Awaken, yes, there are so many trolls here. Okay, Alex, gotta go. Awakened is saying, where I lost it. Oh, I lost where I was at. Oh, there's a lot of trolls on this, for sure. No, Jason, this is not a political live. There's just a lot of people pushing. I do need a mod. Although, I've only been doing these videos for this 250 videos. And, I didn't know this is what people do in the chats. I don't even know how mods work, Mr. Good Cat. Franco says he does not trust one word. That is totally okay with me. You don't have to trust me. You should trust yourself. I don't need you to trust me. Okay, I'm just going to look for questions real quick. Kai Ama, does organ transplant affect your energy? 1,000,000%. It absolutely does. And it can be quite a challenging process to understand the complexity of organ transplant and number one, why does it exist? And number two, when you have, whether you've given your body parts away or you've received body parts from other people, you're bringing in not only the physical body part, but you're also bringing in the cellular energy of another human being that was never meant to be shared. But oftentimes, because people don't understand their energy and understand body parts energy and understand the complexity of the human body, because quite honestly, we've been misled about our bodies. So the answer is yes, and I would suggest that you do some research about understanding the spiritualization of your body parts, and you can heal still. Patrick is saying, or Peter's saying, immature or dysfunctional people are allergic to self-love and the power of others. Allergic is an interesting thing to bring up, Peter, because oftentimes it's the ones who have been abused by the immature, dysfunctional people, the parents and or family members and or others who have the allergic reaction. So Peter, it's a very interesting thing that you bring up, because often the ones who are the abusers do not have the allergy. It's the ones that have been abused, who are lacking self-love, who are lacking personal power, who have abdicated their personal power to their parents or these other authorities, and they are the ones that have the allergy. Why? Because they have been siphoned. They have abdicated their personal power, so that means it must be taken back. And then they must address their weaknesses. And I said this before, must address your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual weaknesses. I'm just looking for other questions. Awakened, I know there's so many trolls on this, and I don't really get or understand how it's allowed to do that, but I will try to address the questions. What's the longest session you can have as far as an energy psychology with me? I do half-day sessions. I think that's probably the longest. That would be best for most people. Even clients who have been coming to me who are proficient in energy psychology and understand how it goes, it could be quite a lot for people, because it goes beyond your intellectual mind. It goes beyond your comprehension. But if you're interested, Koella, I have September specials. Thank you, Awakened. I hope to see you again. Dolly is saying, can you transfer energy into me by getting married? No. I don't transfer energy into people. I do not do the energy from me. I help people understand how to bring it through themselves. Maddie, I've answered that question already. No, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I am and do a healing called energy psychology. Thank you, Spencer. Yeah, there is a lot of, I'm not a pawn. Trust me, I am not a pawn. How they use the social media and how we get infiltrated is the issue. Spencer, you don't have to trust me. In fact, I would tell you, like I tell all my clients, do not worry about trusting me. You must trust yourself. And if you are getting an indication that you don't want to trust me, trust that. I don't need you to trust me. It's okay. I honor that in you. Oh, interesting. Kiannaa, I don't know if I'm saying that wrong, received 70% of her husband's liver, and I act like him now. Yeah, well, what happened to the rest of your liver? And that's a lot. That's a lot. Yes, suppressed anger. Thank you. IBS and liver issues because I suppressed anger and perfectionism. Well, I'm so sorry to hear that you've gone through such a traumatic issue. I would suggest, Kamaya, one, since you already know that anger is an issue, like really understand how to process anger so it doesn't get stuck in your new liver. Number one, because if you don't, you're going to end up having those issues. The other thing I would say is you must do a cleanse, because anything that's going to manifest in the physical is also going to have an energetic perspective. And I would say parasites are the number one cause of a physical degradation. So do some type of parasite cleanse is what I would suggest. And you'll probably have to find one that is very, very gentle. So definitely very gentle. Go easy. And Slime Girl Forever, I'm so sorry of your diagnosis, but just know that any diagnosis can be corrected, and you can live a long, healthy, vibrant life when you learn how to thrive. So any physical manifestation of an illness is asking you to dive into your spiritual aspects. Peter, was there a specific time or thing that happened in my life that was a catalyst for me to embark on my journey and interest to energy and alignment? Okay, Peter, was there a catalyst? Well, I've always been sensitive, so I appreciate your question. That's a very, very nice question. I've always been sensitive, even since I was a little girl. I've always seen things, not very pretty things, since I was a little girl, and I didn't have anybody to talk to about that. But I did have certain things that happened on my path that encouraged me to continue to trust myself. So when I was younger, I used to see things, and my mother believed what I was seeing, but we didn't really know what to do with it with what I was seeing. But the fact that she believed me assured me that I wasn't crazy. Okay, so that was helpful. So I had a mother that was open and also honest, that she didn't understand or see, but she trusted and knew that I was being truthful for her. So I've always been very spiritual. I've always had a deep connection with God. And so from that experience, I went deep into the church. I went deep into Catholicism, and I went through all the things Catholics go through. And when I got to the third one, and I've told this story before, but when I got to the third big event, I had this realization that this was not the place for me, and that God must be talking to me, because every single major event, I had a fever. And I have always known that my body was a tool for spirit. And so when I saw the pattern of 3 fevers at 3 major events with the Catholic Church, I thought, oh, God is talking to me. This is not for me. So now growing up, somewhere in between that, my mother had a good friend that was a psychic who read my palm or whatever she did. I don't even remember. But she told me a couple things that I felt were very affirming. One was to always ask the questions that were in my mind. And I often get a lot of my healing direction through the form of questions. So I was authorized by her, and she said, always ask your questions. And I ask a lot of questions. That's how I communicate with the non-physical, is through questions and inquiry. And so I was really supported and encouraged to do that, and I've never stopped. And in fact, in later years, in my adult years, I would have other psychics ask me if I was in HR or something because I asked so many questions, which I think is funny. I'm not in HR, but how do you address dysfunction? But to get to functional, you must know where the dysfunctions are. So many of my questions are to identify dysfunction so we can realign to function, to higher functioning. And so that's kind of like the short version of how I got on this journey from the beginning to adulthood. And then if you go look at my video, I have a series about manipulation. And it's, I think it's a 3-part series, but I really talk about, and you asked about catalysts. So I actually speak directly to the catalysts of dark forces, dark energies and manipulation, and how we get manipulated in that video. And I would say that was the final catalyst to address my vulnerabilities in my field, because I had been grossly manipulated. And if you go from the manipulation video to the secret illness video, you will see that they correlate, because you will get sick if you've been manipulated. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, because the dark energies, these people who are manipulating, who are toxic, who we give passes because we think it's normal. It's not normal, and it's your life force. And if we don't take our life force back, if we don't learn how our energy fields operate, we will get siphoned, and it will suck the life out of you. And I refuse to have my life sucked out of me. And I teach other people how to harness their own life force. But you can't harness it if it's being siphoned. So you got to first, cut off where you're being targeted, and then realign yourself. So Peter, hopefully that helps you. Sam is saying, thank you. Thanks, Mom. Sam, you're calling me your mom? Jeez. Thanks, Mom. Your words just changed my perspective towards me, and I'm a little emotional guy. I love everyone and help them fast, but mostly they make a profit from my goodness, and how can I help myself from this situation? Yeah, that's a situation, right? You gotta realign. I don't think my face is that long, but you can have your opinion. Eric is saying, girl with a cancer, God be with you. Thanks, Eric. That's very kind. And absolutely, God is with all of us. What makes people fearful of success and hold them back? Mind control, manipulation, brainwashing, and they don't know how to address their fears. You got to learn how to address fears. Fears are false. They're lies. Your mind will lie to you. You must start to learn how to direct your thoughts. You got to understand, what are your thoughts, what are the patterns of your thoughts, and what are those inorganic thoughts that you think, because those aren't yours. That's why I created the peace program. I'm not a vegan teacher, no. I think people need to eat in alignment with themselves. Mob boss, I had a bad day at school. People behind me in class were saying that I was fat. What should I do? Well, I'm sorry that happened. And I'd say kids can be some of the meanest little beings on the planet sometimes when they're not being taught properly. But I would say that these kids need better manners, and to not take in what they're saying as true, to learn to love yourself. You must love yourself and not take in what these other people are saying as the truth for you. You're so young. If you learned how to love yourself at this very young age, you wouldn't have to deal with this later on. But I would also say that bullying is a resonance. And that means that there's some part of you that has a propensity for this type of abuse. So you want to go out of agreement with it. Tell those people that they shouldn't say things that are mean and unkind. Running, if you like to run, run. But losing weight is really about understanding your body and the foods that you're eating. So it's more about what you're eating and what you're doing. Kamaya is saying, I received so much of his liver because my entire organ had to go. She was sick for 20 years. She met him at 20 years ago, had the transplant 8 years, and he first made some pain ointment for me. Wow, you and your husband clearly have some karma. That was your 8-year anniversary, and we both turned 35. Wow. God is amazing and totally in control. Wow. You clearly have some karmic work to do together. So I would do that. Dolly is saying, so you mean to say you have the power to connect with the supernatural powers that's horrible, and I trust you. I don't know what you're saying, Dolly. What is horrible? Understanding your unique gifts is horrible to you? Hurry up and buy. Okay, so how do you conquer them? By actually going through with and seeing if it's wrong? Is that how you conquer it? I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, fear from success. Well, you need to understand what your fears are. You need to understand what your natural thought patterns are. And then you want to disconnect from those inorganic, otherwise known as AI, or implanted thoughts. You got to understand what brainwashing is. You got to understand what conditioning is. And you got to understand what your natural patterns are. And when you do, you cannot be manipulated as easily. So fear of success comes from not being in connection with your heart and soul. That's the actual cause. Hey, Michelle, good to see you here. Sam is saying, oh, Mom. You're calling me Mom. Don't call me Mom, please. I'm a Buddhist, and I also do meditation. It's good. It helps a lot. I have a meditation bowl, and I love meditation. Meditation's good. I meditate all the time. Okay, y'all. This has been a very interesting chat. Just to recap, cognitive distortion is not to be confused with cognitive dissonance. However, both of them come from a lack of spiritual connection. When you do not have a spiritual connection, you will be disconnected from your heart and your soul, and that is where all the distortion and disassociation happens. So people who have distortions will also have exaggerated and irrational thoughts. They will label things and they will be mislabeled, right? They will catastrophize and they will take things personally, and it disconnects us from our heart and our soul. When we are disconnected from our heart and our soul, we become vulnerable mentally and emotionally, and we think we're losing our mind. You're not losing your mind. All you need to understand is that your lack of spiritual connection has been the issue. And so when you connect spiritually, and I'm not talking about going to church, I mean connect spiritually to your heart. Create that connection to your heart so your lower heart and your higher heart can begin to open. That becomes an extra dimensional portal. That is your access to higher consciousness, and that will reconnect you with your soul. So you do not want to be in disconnection, because when you're in disconnection, you will have lots of contact and resonance with people who have black flowering hearts. Those black flowering hearts are people who are dark and do dark things to others, like hate, manipulate, lie, brainwash. You want to disentangle from the webs in which they have woven within your life. Okay, y'all, have a great day. I'm Kiannaa Sadge, and I guide people to peace. I will be here tomorrow for another video. I have not picked the topic, but Peter, I'm sure it's going to be coming from your list. Have a great day. Bye. Gary, I just saw you. Good to see you here, Gary. Oh, Sam, I call you from that word because I came in from your live stream, and I feel like I'm in my home environment. Feels like I'm talking to my mom. So sorry. Oh my gosh. Well, I will take that as a compliment then, Sam. Okay, Peter, bye. Bill, bye. See you later. Amit, see you. Good to see you guys here. Hope to see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.